Good day to you, fine listener. I am the Comics Kid 2099, and you have stumbled onto my review of the third episode of the anime series Medabots. This one is titled Running Scared. I am not afraid to say that sometimes I am an idiot. Like when I reviewed the first episode of Medabots, I had a lot of positive things to say about the episode. I think largely those positive things were a reaction to how much I really hated the first episode of Cubics, which I had watched and reviewed a relatively short time earlier. But still, going from a show that is astoundingly terrible to a show that is mostly terrible isn't much of an improvement. And I guess me sometimes being an idiot, I didn't really notice this. And I do not want anyone to think that, oh, so you think I'm an idiot for liking this show. No. Absolutely not. I try to make it a point not to insult the intelligence of anyone who likes anything that I don't like. Sometimes it's just a matter of taste. You may like something because the factors that went into making it were generally geared more towards you and your demographic than they were me and my demographic. So, at the end of the day, you might like Medabots, and I just don't. No harm, no foul. I'm saying I was an idiot because I was looking at the pilot episode and talking about how well it was telling story elements and introducing the premise and handling the premise. And here's the thing. The reason I like a series, a movie, or an episode is because of things like characters. Are they likable? Who is the bad guy? Is he handled in a way that makes sense with the motivation that he is given? Does their conflict make any sense, or is it just thrown in there because this is a show or a movie or an episode where fighting is expected to happen, and so it has to have a fight even if it doesn't make sense? I look for logical consistency in shows I watch. And I'm sad to say that Medabots isn't doing anything at all to offer any logical consistency for people who are into that sort of thing. Case in point, the Screws Gang. The really manly girl and her two thugs. They go to school with the main guy, Icky. And in the first two episodes, these guys were treated like bad guys. Not very competent bad guys, mind you, but bad guys nonetheless. About the equivalent of Team Rocket from Pokemon, if you will. And you wouldn't expect to see Team Rocket eating a picnic with Ash, Misty, and Brock, would you? So, when I am watching this episode of Medabots, it's weird to me that the Screws are hanging out with Icky and his friend Chloe, who works for the Smallville Torch. This is confusing to me because for two episodes, these guys were presented as rivals or antagonists to our main guy, and now suddenly they're hanging out together. Even if it is mostly because their teacher is giving them detention. If it's a begrudging hanging out, I would have at least expected a little more animosity between these guys than what we got. It's this lack of consistency that is keeping me from appreciating the series. Well, that and much more, which I'll be getting into. I find it especially odd that the coach, who is heavily featured in this episode, gives kids detention if they are caught playing with their Medabots. What? Wasn't there like a school-sanctioned meta battle in the first episode? Happening right in front of the school, in front of everyone who goes to the school? Now, I guess it's sort of like how if a fight happens at your school, then everyone is going to watch, but if a teacher comes, then someone is going to get in trouble, right? Or if you went to school where I did in the early 2000s and late 90s, when Pokemon was just getting huge, the teachers hated those cards, and eventually it was like, okay, no more Pokemon stuff in this classroom or I'm taking it up. So I guess Medabots in the world of Medabots are like that. A teacher doesn't like seeing Medabots at the school because he or she is thinking that the kid isn't paying attention to their schoolwork because they're paying so much attention to this really cool robot toy that they have with them or something. Okay, I guess that makes sense. But it would have been nice if we could have had this information in the first episode. And all of this is pure conjecture. I don't even know if this is true or if it's something that is kind of there in this episode, and then in the next episode, the math teacher might have a meta slave handing out papers for her or something. Again, lack of consistency in this series. Speaking of consistency, Medabots is suddenly friends with Icky, I guess, when every interaction between these two in the first two episodes were really very hostile, if you will. I like the idea that these two aren't butting heads anymore, but wouldn't it have been cool to actually watch their relationship grow over time instead of it just happening magically in between two episodes? Once again, say it with me. Inconsistency in this series. And here's the really weird thing. You've got the coach who hates Medabots, and if he sees a kid with one, he makes them run until they basically die. And conveniently, this same coach is also teaching some class inside. And if you make a bad grade, you run until you die. Conveniently, yet again, Icky made a bad grade. Otherwise, he wouldn't have had really any reason at all to get involved of the plot of this episode. And for what feels like half of the freaking episode, Icky and the Screws keep doing stupid things and getting more punishments from this coach guy. For some unexplained reason, Icky is serving food in the cafeteria, and he accidentally spills hot soup on the coach's hand. More running. He is carrying a bucket of water, and he slips and spills the water on the coach. More running. But why is he serving food and carrying water? Are these punishments? I was under the impression that the running until death thing was the punishment. No, wait, don't explain it, because like I say, all of this nonsense, which I guess is supposed to make me laugh, takes up half of the episode. And then the kids find out that the coach has purchased a Medabot, so they go and follow him into what can only be described as an even creepier version of the criminal underworld, where adults are asking kids if they want to play karaoke or something. I'm not even kidding. This segment of the episode would have likely given me nightmares if I was in the target audience when I watched this. Oh, and before I go on with the rest of the plot of this episode, let me talk about the title of this episode. It's called Running Scared. Now, as I've said, the kids in this episode run laps for punishment. But exactly nowhere in this episode is a single character scared of anything. The kids aren't scared to follow the coach into the weird underworld of karaoke and over 21 establishments. The coach isn't afraid to fight for the playground. So why on earth is this episode titled thusly? I know I don't, ever talk about episode titles because usually there's not really anything to talk about. But good golly, Miss Molly, this title is immensely stupid. It might as well have been called Waterfalls on Mars, since that has nothing to do with the episode either. Anyway, here's what's really weird about the episode, not the title. The coach wants to build a playground for some kids in the inner city, so he buys a Medabot, with money that he could have used to build the playground. Now apparently, there are these weird 1940s gangster guys who also want to buy the land that the coach wants to put the playground on. Now here's what would really happen. You've got two parties who want to buy some land. The owner who is selling this land would either A, choose one of the parties to sell to, or B, start a bidding war. Oh, this guy says he can give me $50,000. Can you pay me more than that? And then eventually you'll be selling the land to one of them and you win either way. But apparently, in the world of nothing makes sensium, if you are selling land and two people want to buy it, then they have to have a robot battle over it. Now I get that this world is a world where people have robots that fight each other, but surely that's not how every single problem is handled, right? I mean, the 1940s gangster guys said that they were fine settling this another way, but the coach apparently wanted to settle it via a meta battle. And what does any of this have to do with the two gangster guys coming to visit the coach at the school asking him for money? He's not buying from them, is he? But these gangster guys, they're just at the school so that the kids can see them and then follow the coach so that they can get into the story only, after 2/3 of the episode is over. Now, here's the thing. The actual story of this episode is as follows. The coach wants to build this playground. Icky wins the meta battle for him so it can be built. That is the plot that cannot sustain 20 minutes, which is how long this episode is. So this episode tries to kill time by spending something like 7 minutes with characters just doing stupid stuff and getting detention for it, or having characters do things that make no kind of sense at all, but they have to do these things because that's what the audience is expecting. Honestly, this story is supposed to be heartwarming or something, but with how awfully the story is handled, I don't even care when all is said and done. I'm not saying this is a bad idea for a story, but it could have been handled about 1000% better. Honestly, I dragged my feet for so long on watching this episode and doing a review for it after I had such a lukewarm experience with the second episode. And this one, if anything, is worse than the second one. If anyone was looking forward to hearing my thoughts on more episodes of Medabots, I am sorry to disappoint you, but I don't think I will be continuing with this series. But the good news is, if you like hearing my thoughts on Batman the Animated Series and the Young Justice cartoon in reviews of each episode, well, it's more likely that I'll be covering those series at a faster rate now that I'm no longer worrying about a show that I frankly hate. So, sorry if I'm disappointing anyone who wants to hear my further thoughts on this series, but alas, it won't be happening. But hey, stick around, please. Maybe you'll be liking some of the other videos that I put up really soon. You never know. Having said that, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will talk to you guys later.